When your time comes to die, you probably hope that you will be surrounded by loving family members and friends who will support you. The New World Order wishes you to die alone, in prison. The 2012 candidates appeared warm towards each other despite their fierce rivalry. Welcome to the New World Order. It's absolutely not true. The truth is Democrats who so want to support their president are either delusional or, more likely, ignorant of basic economics. Why? Because it is the old divide and conquer strategy. Welcome to the New World Order. The New World Order will use religion and its devout followers to enslave them. This argument is centuries old, but my life is short, so I will stick to trying to stop greedy, ruthless people who, I hate to say, exist and have designs on making us build our own prison. In other words, the challenges we face are not because of governments. Hello, you may have heard of me and my music. I'm RoyElvis. My own general opinion is a subjective belief, and is the result of emotion or interpretation of facts of my true investigation. Let's continue. The New World Order, to paraphrase Baudelaire, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world of the moral superiority of collectivism. According to Ayn Rand, if we don't convince the world otherwise, nothing else will work. Our greatest ally in this fight is human nature. Our greatest asset is morality itself, which is really, truly, undeniably, and absolutely on our side. The New World Order media constantly present us with graphic reminders of the atrocities of Hitler, Stalin, Imperial Japan, Mao's Red Guards, the Inquisition and the conquistadors. To make the point, there is no alternative. We are constantly shown that the independence of nation-states leads to war, barbarism, bloodshed, devastation and extermination. Good intentions degenerate into Stalinism and Nazism. Religious power, which sustained civilizations from ancient Egypt on, degenerates into crusades, inquisitions, intifadas and state Shintoism. We cannot trust ourselves. We cannot trust majority rule, we can only trust the ruling elite. Any alternative model, the Soviet, the Japanese, the German etc., must be crushed, preferably without a shot being fired, merely through propaganda and the undermining of its banking system. Within nation-states, the majority is mentally disarmed through the promotion of minorities as persecuted victims. Women, children, gays, Jews, blacks, tribal peoples, trees, animals. Trees and animals participate indirectly through their interest groups. Human rights means minority rights. Each minority is maintained in a state of fear of the majority and mobilized against it. With jobs scarce and insecure, the unemployed must compete for them along racial lines in affirmative action categories. By these means, the majority loses its moral legitimacy and is dissolved into the global empire. Pariah countries which reject the empire, Cuba, Libya, Iraq, North Korea, Burma, are subjected to a barrage of propaganda about human rights abuses, the accuser, in effect, being the New World Order, hiding its own imperial designs, and economically isolated through sanctions preventing trade, travel, and the acquisition of modern technology. Any country which leaves the empire will face a demand for the repayment of its foreign debt, as well as being told to fend for itself if invaded without help from the empire. In this scheme of things, one figure really looms above all others: Adolf Hitler. Scarcely a fortnight goes by without some TV channel featuring a major documentary about him and his regime. An opponent to the New World Order may not admire Hitler, or Stalin, or Mao or Zhou or Cortés or Pizarro, much less all of them. But the message of the New World Order propaganda is that any alternative to the New World Order will develop along these lines. As the chief villain, Hitler stands for all of these. He is the archetype of evil, against which the New World Order must look good. In terms of George Orwell's scenario in 1984, Hitler is the new Goldstein. Any opponent to the New World Order is thus forced to take a stand on Hitler. The media message, through its constant focus on Hitler, is that opposing the New World Order is tantamount to supporting Hitler. Conversely, to oppose Hitler is, by implication, to support the New World Order. How can opponents of the New World Order escape from this dilemma? Some attempt to do it by exonerating Hitler. Others, like myself, admit Hitler's sins but focus on the use to which they are put as a shield behind which the New World Order can justify itself. To elaborate, Hitler's sins include planning and launching major wars, opposition to interracial marriage, and the persecution of all Jews on account of the activities of some. Hitler would not have had the level of support he did, if he had not also done some beneficial things. But the beneficial things he did were good only for those he identified as his own people. In the same way, national system economics, that based on the ideas of Frederick List and Alexander Hamilton, benefits one's own country but turns others into colonies. I was amazed when during a conversation with a Jewish man who had survived the Belsen concentration camp, he said, "Hitler did a lot of good for his people, Mussolini did a lot of good for his people, Mussolini's only mistake was to join with Hitler." These words stunned me, but they did not turn me into an admirer of Hitler. I have never been one. Perhaps we can see the two sides of Hitler best by looking at the colonization of Australia by European settlers. These days we can no longer ignore the fact of invasion or its cruelty. Even the rule of law, the British legal system, came here in an illegal way. It is a graphic illustration that right is founded upon might, as it was in the beginning of civilization, when Upper Egypt conquered Lower Egypt to begin the dynasties of ancient Egypt. Yet even though the sins of the white colonists of Australia are obvious, their critics stand upon the edifice they built, the roads, bridges, cities, universities, farms, airports, communications systems, etc. It is appropriate to feel ambiguous about those invaders, appalled at their violence, and yet admiring of their accomplishments. In this context, one can understand how Germans might feel about Hitler, how Russians might look back on the USSR, and even how Yitzhak Rabin might have felt about Israel in his latter years. Ambiguity is a more appropriate feeling here than either adulation or contempt. Since the fall of the USSR, the United States has been hailed as the last bastion of the Enlightenment project of drawing all the world into a universal civilization. But it is an awkward empire, because its foundation date, 1776, marks for most Americans not the start of empire, but withdrawal from empire. July 4 is called Independence Day. During a time of pessimism a few years ago, Kevin Phillips' best-selling book Arrogant Capital depicted the United States as the new but declining Roman Empire. The United States' current account deficit, like Australia's, may be a sign of decline, but it is also a way of extending the empire to include the new provinces of Japan, China, Thailand, etc., allowing them to become rich by selling their goods into the United States, Australia, etc., in compensation for the loss of independence. They can't have it both ways. America may be the new Rome, but Rome's conquest was two-way. The legions marched outwards, turning independent countries into provinces. The ancient and original civilization of Egypt ended its life as a province of Rome. Yet the religions of the provinces marched into Rome: Isis from Egypt, Ishtar from Iraq, Mithra from Persia, Yahweh from Jerusalem. Polytheism was the multiculturalism of the day. Each temple represented an aspect of the truth. They were seen as compatible, not exclusive. An apologia for the New World Order was sketched by H.G. Wells in his book The Open Conspiracy, of which the main edition was published in 1933, the year Hitler attained power. Wells obviously had not envisaged the emergence of Hitler, yet even at that time, 65 years ago, a sort of New World Order was in place, although much less developed than today. It is a sober reminder that however solid the edifice of empire appears today, it may have cracks that reveal themselves in years to come, and the oppression we complain about today may, in the light of future wars, look like the good old days. Should we therefore feel not opposition to the New World Order but ambiguity, and aim to improve it rather than destroy it? Today's political debates often end up in the following compromise: capitalism may be more economically efficient, but it's no moral match to economic equality that benefits most people. But the only way economic equality can benefit people is by pandering to their class envy. In all other aspects, economical, political, cultural, philosophical, and spiritual, it's a dastardly, immoral cause. To begin with, it is the efficiency of capitalism that benefits most people. Among other things, it raises everyone's living standards and quality of life, expands consumer choices, boosts innovation that reduces the share of low-paying, mind-numbing manual jobs, increases the pool of well-paid professional jobs, gives the poor access to things that only the rich could enjoy a short while ago, promotes the creation of new cures of diseases, extends life expectancy and makes old age much more enjoyable. The alternative to capitalism, whatever one would like to call it, is the loss of freedom, loss of choices, government corruption, and moral decay. What do we get in return? The vague promise of economic equality. But in human reality, complete economic equality cannot be achieved. A century of collectivized social experiments around the world has proven three undeniable facts. 1. Government-enforced economic equality results in a forced inequality of a powerless, impoverished populace ruled by a corrupt elite. 2. The main obstacle to economic equality is human nature. 3. Human nature cannot be changed, no matter the effort to re-educate, indoctrinate, or punish the violators. An essential part of everyone's human nature is what collectivists are underlining as greed. Generally speaking, it is a normal desire of all humans to achieve a better life for themselves and their children. In a free capitalist system, greed-driven achievers engage in lawful productive work, start businesses, and build things. In a restrictive socialist system, to achieve a better station in life, one must either join the corrupt government apparatus, or become part of the criminal underworld with its vast shadow economy. The alternative is to succumb to misery and, very likely, alcoholism or worse. In the end, capitalism brings out the best in people, socialism brings out the worst. How worthy and moral can an ideal be that punishes achievement and criminalizes human nature? Proponents of economic equality are either willfully blind, or are themselves sociopathic megalomaniacs, trying to create a restrictive system in which they envision themselves to be part of the powerful ruling elite. Both are willing to go to extremes in order to achieve their goal. As they spin their tale of an imminent paradise, they never say what it will cost us to get there, and, frankly, They don't give a damn. Individual human sacrifice is never an obstacle for collectivists. They're glorious and justifies any unsightly means. It is up to us then to examine just what exactly we will have to give up for the promise of economic equality, something that has been proven to not exist. At first we will have to accept restrictions on certain consumer choices and products in exchange for letting the government take care of our personal well-being. Then come restrictions on speech and activities, a price for maintaining the national well-being. Eventually all dissent is suppressed and criminalized as the media falls under the government control, young people are indoctrinated in the new ways, businesses pay enormous taxes, more and more families descend into misery and live off government subsidies, the economy crumbles, and shortages create long lines at the supermarket. The leaders shift the blame to enemies of the people, saying that this country would have been a dreamland if it weren't for a few greedy reactionaries. With no one left to object, desperate citizens succumb to the hatred and accept the idea that eliminating the few is a fair price to pay for improving the lives of the many. Then they accept the idea that eliminating an entire class of people is a small price to pay. But despite all the bloodletting, the promised collectivized paradise never arrives and the misery only increases. By now the demoralized, destitute masses are fully separated from the ruling elites by an impenetrable wall of privilege. The ultimate price, the relentless sacrifice of millions of people, the work, careers, ambitions, property, and lives, has been paid to reach an unattainable economic mirage, a phantom concocted in the feverish minds of a few maniacs obsessed with class envy. In contrast, the price of living in a free and prosperous capitalist society is merely to accept economic inequality as a natural extension of human nature. Without doubt, it's a small price to pay for remaining a free, productive, and moral people who live in harmony with objectively true moral principles, otherwise known as the natural moral law. Thank you. This is Roy Elvis speaking to you. If you like this video, please subscribe.